today for a different type of reading. I've been guided to follow this road here a little bit. Basically, what I've got going on here is I've had a reoccurring dream. About the past 10 years, it's been in my field highly, and little bit, sorry, my cat, she's just gonna do this. Sorry, can't help it. I've been in and out of... This is interesting because this leads me to the same energy that I had. I've already tried to attempt to do this reading once, and I wasn't happy with the results. I had a lot of ums and ahs, and my throat chakra was really being clogged up quite a bit. So I went in and cleared all that energy out, and then this comes as a, so it's obviously someone out there doesn't want this message getting through. But for the highest good of all involved, this message needs to get out. So I'm just telling you, there's a bit of a blurb in energy trying to stop the reading. But we'll just ignore that and go past that, because my guides are telling me, not only are we protected, but this energy has use out there energetically. So this may somehow resonate with you. This may explain things for you. This may hit you profoundly in the heart center. It won't be a reading like, I don't know if it's an I don't know, it is not a reading for you. But nonetheless, it may hit someone outside of you, or you may see someone in your sphere go through this, and this may help you understand that scenario a little better. Because if you're in touch with this frequency, it has some effect around you in some way. Otherwise, it would be something that you just float over, and it won't stick in your energy field. So, as I move forward, I'm getting a lot of energy here to stop it. But that's okay. We'll just pass right through that. Okay? I just have to spend a little more time and be a little more diligent with my field here. And here we go. So, how did this all start? There is a recurring dream. There's visions that support the dream. The characters keep coming back in visuals. This has happened over the last 10 years to a degree that I've got a snippet of a lifetime of information that I do feel is from a past life that someone around me carried. So I'm hoping that not only the story will free you up in some way, but the information afterwards will help you in this life. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to correlate that past life and overlap it with the cards are going to guide me to what is going on in this life and how that past life is affecting this life in the here and now. And hopefully that will unblock, unclear the whole field so that we can see exactly where we need to go with no blocks. And it may actually remove those blocks for you. So here we go. Yes, I've removed that energy field. There was a high energy field of destruction wanting to break through this, but we've come to a higher plane here where this energy no longer exists. And this is absolutely happening on the planet Earth as we speak. There's destructive energies trying to attack positive energy fields from getting through to the higher frequency. But the higher frequency has been reached, and I've got lots of validation outside of me for this. This energy right here, case in point, my cat was screaming at the door. My throat chakra was, wavering. I felt like I was sick in my throat. My words couldn't come out properly. Not only could I not find the words, but they would chop up in the thing. So my first reading, I'll decide later whether or not. I think what I'm going to do is actually attach the first reading and edit out all of the uncomfortable vocal problems that I had in there. Coughing, disjointed words, sentences not being chopped right up, like scrambled eggs. It's like that. So this will be a smoother reading, but I will, I think in the future, depending on how I feel. They said just record a new one from scratch and then we'll decide what we'll do with the other one. I said, okay. And then in my mind, as I'm sitting here, it's like we could edit the hell out of it, and literally, and then we'll go in and give you that edited material, and you can use that information along with the new information that we're going to give you here today. So I am filming this on the 31st of October. And what they're telling me is this is the highest field of oppression that we will have come against us. So if we are getting through this, we have no problems from here on in. And anybody that knows me, if I'm being blocked in a certain area, I'm going to go straight in there, especially if I'm being guided by the higher realm. That you cannot stop me from that. I've had blockages in my past where I've went to go on live, and I've had about 10 blockages. And normally, if this were to happen in any other field, I would stop at 3. That's but if I'm being guided, I will push through that and we get through it. And here we go. And I feel like the throat chakra is clear. I feel like my mind is clear. And I feel like I'm on a different plane here than I was when I was recording. So I'm going to get into the snippet of the past life story that I've put together through my dream time, my third eye, my intuition. All of it has added up to this snippet of a storyline that I've gotten, that I've put together, that I can't address to anyone in my life. So this hopefully will help you in some way. So we have to go way back to the days of rock castles, kings and queens, carts and carriages. In fact, a lot of horses and whatnot to travel here and there. They're showing me, actually, there was a movie on Netflix that was somewhat like that. It's like coming forward in time and back in time, and how the lives overlap. They're showing me this correlation. So, and what is it called, please? Outlander. Thank you. This movie would be highly in sync with the time that I'm tapping into here of kings and queens and whatnot, and the vulgarity, and also the egos and the amount of bravery that was had at that time is the same. So if you want more insight, or just need something to watch, that you probably have seen it because it's quite popular. That is a great, and it's a great love story as well, is what they said. So here we go. So it's back in that day, and what it is we have a king and a queen, and a king looking for a queen. And what was shown to me in this dream was the fact that this man was seeking a queen. And back in the day, they were very removed from the emotional center. The heart is on lockdown. We do not come from our heart. We do as we need to do. He would be, in this present day, an air sign where we leave our heart out of things. But this man would be an air sign on the negative side. But nonetheless, he's searching for his queen. He has knights and servants around him 24/7. And the greatest castle, right? Big, huge castle with a lot of servants. So what happens here is this man is looking for his queen, and the knights are given the chore of going outward to find a suitable partner for the king. And in doing so, they are in charge of finding the best lineage and also the best character to suit the king. Now you got to remember, back in the day, the queen served the king. It's a very different dynamic. It's a very heavy energy, but yet there was a sense of regalness and royalness to it that was above, right? And this king would come in the courtyard and talk to the public, and as he would do this, the knights and the helpers were looking through the crowd to seek a lineage of good faith to the king. So not only were the, how would you say, the prestigious, would come forth to show their kin, right, their children, this is my child and she's been reared in the greatest way, almost like they'd show a prize horse. Come take her away, like that, to live in the castle amongst whatever. So these people were being, thrown into the king's face. And again, the king was quite removed. It was more the knights and the helpers at his side that would bring these women in. And they would have, a long line of a week or so of dinners, mornings, afternoons, evenings he would spend with these women and test drive them, to see how he would feel. But again, he was quite removed from that. It was the knights that would choose for him. This man was a ruler, and if you don't agree with him, he would behead you. And these men were his confidants. They were his crew that he had entrusted. So he had 100% faith, so much so that he could give up his own opinion and give it to them. They were like his own chosen few, and he entrusted these men to make the decision to put that queen in place. So they would, again, seek these crowds out, and then they got a crowd, and they narrowed it down to this one woman. Over time, they would have dinners and, slowly filter it out. And there was one knight in particular that chose the queen that actually, or the peasant that actually became the queen. And this queen is the perspective that I got shoved into. I would get pulled into her energy, then I would get pulled into being a third person, just watching it. It was like I was a fly on the wall. Nobody else saw me, but I could see everything going on, but I wasn't her. And then I would get thrown into her and see the king dealing with me, So this is why it was confusing for me to figure out. But none of these characters ended up coming into my life at all to be seen. So you may, again, resonate with one of these perspectives in some way, somehow. And we can have a perspective of a masculine moving to a feminine. So I can tell the story from the king's perspective, and we could have a woman that was that king in a past life, or we could have a man that was that queen. So keep that in mind. Okay. As we move on. So we picked the queen. The knight has picked the queen. And what happens is they have a full week of, a lot of time is input to this woman to bring her up to standard, right? It's like if you were going to be a queen today, you got to go through manner lessons, you got to go through clothing change, you got to go through, they were showing me like slathering like lotions, expensive lotions on her, and scrubs and whatnot, like getting her to a point where she is treated like a queen. And so this takes a bit of time to get into that routine, and this queen was driven through that over a week or two of time, as I seen it or as I felt it. Again, time and space are hard to tell in this way. But nonetheless, it came down that she got into the grind of what was expected of her, and she rose to the heights of this. This woman was, I want to say, a lowly peasant, to put you in the mode, but this woman did not degrade herself to think that a peasant was any different than anybody else. She basically had a healthy self-worth without an ego. And this is what the knight saw in her, as to, I can be forefront in your life and still serve you and not get out of hand, was the sense that this is the aura that she gave off. So moving on, she's in the grind of not only looking more like a queen and changing her dress and being fitted for outfits and whatnot, but getting into the physical routine. This is what happens. So what I noticed was that in the mornings they would eat breakfast together, her and the king. And it was very cold. It was like a big long table at one end, and you have some servants or some people that have been invited, but for the most part it's just the two of them at breakfast. They eat, and the king tells about his day, what he's going to accomplish, and off he goes. And then off she is taken by that night to go to the shops and to attend to things in that kind of a way. And a lot of it at first was pampering, was gaining things for her, like dresses and coat fittings and this kind of thing, dressmakers. And, you know, this carried on until we were supplied with the lifestyle that we were living. So as we move forward, over time, right, this is the routine. This is what's happening. This is what's going on. And over time, the queen became stagnant in her energy because she was realizing she was unhappy, and she also realized that she had a dream of being a queen. And this did not add up to what she perceived being a queen would be. And as much as she thought she should be with the king, she felt like she saw the king and had a better relationship with the king as a peasant than she did being the queen. He was always being pulled out of situations away from her in order to deal with other people's issues, and though that was his, you know, his fate to do that, to be king, it was very disheartening for her, and over time this bore down on her. And it came to a point where she was letting the knights know that there was things that she wasn't happy with. And it's, again, we got to look at the difference between the time. Back in the day, there's a certain expectation that if you there's a high responsibility for the queen to serve the king, and if you realize this is not for you, you cannot back out of it. It is a disgrace to the king. You cannot, and you would be beheaded. So this is all stuff that's hitting her on levels. It's very burdening, very heavy upon her. But as this secure female, within herself, she realizes this is not the life she wants to live. And she knows it's going to come down to two things in her life. She's going to have to either live this way or sacrifice living the way that she wants to live. Right? She's going to have to sacrifice this way. And there's certain things that you benefit, and there's certain things that are to your deficit. And the deficit has now overcome the benefit to a degree we can no longer have this. So she explains to the knights now, it comes down to one day that I kept seeing come up and replaying, where she goes with the knight, and the knight is taking her out to the usual shops. There's a rotation of where we would go and what we would do, and she got in the carriage and she said to him, "No, we are not going to go there." And he looks at her and says, "Well, no, the king has said we have to go here, there, and we have to be, at dinner, we have to meet." And she's like, I don't want to go. And the knight is somewhat frustrated, but he does have a respect for this queen, but he also has his earned respect from the king. He will not betray the king because it will be his life on the line. So he's trying to play both sides here. So he, moves into the queen and in respect asks for her side of the view. And she basically said, "Can we go to dinner?" While this man is going, "We can't go off schedule here because we're supposed to be at the restaurant at noon. It is not noon. It is like 10:30 in the morning. We cannot go where we're not supposed to be. Otherwise, stuff will go down. The king will be upset. He will hear about this and I will have to answer to that. What is it that you want to accomplish here?" And she says, "I just don't want to go to the shop." He says, "Why don't we get in the carriage and we will drive you around town." That in his mind was okay. I can take her around, see the sights, and we can just, get some air and everything will wash over. Whatever she's going through here, we'll just let her vent it out and then we will move on. So over the period of the rest of the morning until about 11:45, okay, we end up going and seeing the sights of the country area and whatnot, and we come back to the area where we are going to eat dinner, and we are told to eat dinner that day. And though we are 15 minutes early, we are still within a window of time that we can go in there and everything will be fine. She said, is it all right that just you and me have dinner? And he says, absolutely. In fact, the king is not able to make it again today. And this seemed to be a recurring theme. She was seeing him less and less throughout the day over time. And it worked out that they could have dinner. And so they would go and have dinner, and there would be other people around keeping an eye and making sure that nothing nefarious was going on, right? And again, this is the most highly trusted king, or the highly trusted man by the king to be with her. And he was the one that chose her, so he's quite frustrated as to why she is feeling all these things. But nonetheless, they have a dinner and they enjoy themselves. And after dinner, she says, I want you to take me home. And he says, well, we have a whole afternoon. We can't go back until 6 p.m. And, you know, and the other people are trying to appease her and say, well, we have this and that this is coming out today and we can go and do all this, that, and the other. They're trying to make it look like a grand, wonderful day when this woman is just depressed. And there's nothing that can seem to get her out of it. So he looks at the other knights, kind of fends them off, and said, you know what, I will deal with her this afternoon, and I will bring her back for the evening. Go about your business. So the other people, they do kind of back off, and they allow this knight to deal with her, because they have a fairly decent relationship, and there's nothing nefarious going on. He's not into her, he's not looking at her, he would never. He's loyal to the king. And the queen is the king's side piece. So this is what. So there's nothing like that going on. And basically the female wasn't thinking from that. The queen wasn't thinking from that center anyway. She just needed a sounding board to be heard. She wanted to be heard and validated for what she was feeling, thinking. And she knew in her life where she had to go from here. I feel like she had a profound, before this day, she had a profound feeling that I cannot continue in this way anymore. And it's like people of today, when you realize that you're either in a relationship or a marriage, that I can't go a step further here. I'm not happy. This does not serve me, this kind of thing. It's like that download. So, they eat and everything goes well, and they get in the carriage and off they go again. And she stops him in the middle of the road and said, we need to stop. I do not want to go to the shops. I do not want to be entertained. I've got all the jewels. I've got all the clothing. I've got all the food and comforts. I do not need another thing thrown at me. It will not make me happy. So he goes in and he stops everything, gives the horses a break, everybody go off. He tends to this woman and is very frustrated at this time and says, what is the problem here? Do you realize what you are asking of me? The information you are giving me, I cannot have this information and go forward with dignity from here on in. You need to resolve this, and we need to go back to the castle. And she says, yes, we do need to go back to the castle. And he, is in full agreement. There's something wrong here. And he's going to tend to the king to straighten it out, is the sense. But he's warning her. Do not say you refuse to be the queen. Do not say you do not want. We have to continue this. We can, work our way out of this, was his mentality. So nonetheless, they go back to the castle. And again, we're working on 1:30, 2 p.m., right? And this is the time of day that we're not supposed to be at the castle. We're supposed to be there from 6 to 10 p.m. 6 to 9 p.m. is when this woman is supposed to arrive. But this knight is frustrated, and he is deciding of his own volition to bring her back to the castle. So they go back to the castle, and the woman kind of hurriedly runs up to her room and sees that the king is in there with 3 other women. So she is shocked to see these 3 women in half undressed. Also him in a robe and, you know, he's got his sword and sheath and nothing else but a robe. So she knows what's going on. All of a sudden, her world is validated. All of these feelings that she felt the night talking her out of, suddenly this is the epitome of a tower moment. No, I do need to leave. I don't need to push this aside. This is not for me. This man is with 3 other women. So she, you know, naively expected this man to be loyal to her, and that's just not the way things worked back then. It wasn't the way things worked. And so she comes in and she's shocked. And she has a little bit of dignity left here that she's going to come from. And as she stands into the room and sees what's going on here, the knight is coming in after her. And he is shocked that this is the scenario. He was not that he was unaware of what was going on, but he was unaware it was going on at that time, or he would never have brought the queen to see that, right? We would have made other plans. So this was unexpected for him. So he is like, oh, sorry, king. You know, the queen demanded she come home. She says, yes, damn right. You know, these are not the words that they use, but I demanded to come home, and this is where I needed to be right now in order to see what I needed to see to validate where and what is going to happen from here on in. And he can see that this woman is not in alignment or in any compassion with the king whatsoever. So the king puts on his ego suit and says, you know, what is going on here? And the knight says, do you need my assistant? And the king says, off with you, you get outside. I do not, this will be dealt with. So he's pushed out the door, and the king reverts back to the queen. And the queen has her say and says, what are you doing here? Like, you explain to me what's going on. And he says, vile woman, this is my harem, and this is the way things are done. Like, he knows, but he's not going to feel sorry for her. He's not going to feel sorry for having these women on his arm and flesh, right? He's not going to feel sorry for that. That is an entitlement to him. This is my, as king, I get this whenever I want this. So this is being very boldly pushed outward. And the queen is again, somewhat in shock, but in her dignity, trying to speak up for herself and getting no compassion whatsoever. So as she continues to do so, the king starts to get enraged. And as he does, he starts to yell and scream. And these women on his arm look at him like he is a stranger, because they've never heard these types of words being said in this way come out of him. He is enraged. And these women always get the soft side of this guy. So, you know, this is jolting for them. There's 3, they're going red, blonde, and brunette. There's 3 of them. So as they start to get jarred, she is not letting up on her end, trying to keep her cool, but very agitated. He is losing his cool because this queen is not bowing down to him. She is not backing off. She is standing her ground. He cannot have this. He will not have this. In fact, he's got nothing but yes men under him, and you degrade me by saying no, you cannot do this. You end up dead. So what happens is he starts to bring out his sword, and the you know, the harlots, or the, you know, the mistresses, they start scattering, and they start screaming and running for the door. They don't want to see what's going to happen because they know it's escalating. The queen is not backing down, and the king has had enough. So the night, as these, you know, barmaids were left out, the knight comes rushing in and says, King, do we need assistance here? And then he turns his back to the king and immediately addresses the queen and says, I think we need to settle down, because he is in honor of the king. He has served the king, so he has to make him a priority or he will be beheaded. So the fight is escalating, things are getting rough. The sword has come out, and the king is coming at the queen with the sword when the knight interrupts. The knight is trying to get that queen off her ledge to bow down to the king, and she will not do this. She's made up her mind, and she's prepared to die for it. So, again, the king's in the knight's in the middle, trying to bring her off that ledge. The knight somehow, that is dealing with the queen, manages to get the sword away from the king. And the king is furious at this point. And he says, everybody out. Leave me with the queen, and I will deal with this. So as they de-arm him, they go outside and they realize that, something's going to be done here. We're either going to have a beheading tomorrow at the courtyard of the queen, or something's going to happen here. This is just not going to blow over. Again, it's a very heavy energy. So as they leave and go out the door, the king turns around and faces the queen, and the queen says to her, "I no longer want to be the queen." And he pulls out a gun and shoots her. This is the past life that it's been reloaded into my brain, and downloaded. Over time, there's just been little snippets, like sometimes I see her with the knight, sometimes I would see, and I think it was that dinner. I think it was the dinner with the knight and trying to, let things blow over before the day. And then the very last one that I saw came to me, something triggered the memory, and it showed me the king killing the queen. Boom. And that was just like a 3-second snippet. He just turns and I knew that they were a couple. I knew that it was all connected. So anyway, this is the dream that has been plaguing me for 10 years. And again, there's nobody in my life that I can pin any of this area onto. So hopefully this will help you guys in some way, or alleviate something, because I have had instances where I've remembered other past lives with other people, and it has alleviated huge burdens upon the people and upon me as well. It has changed my life in subtle but profound ways. It's subtle because nobody on the outside may know or understand. And it's profound because it's deeply life-changing on a spiritual level. And this, may hit you in the same way. And again, this reading won't be like, I don't know if that's for me. It'll be either life-affirming, like, oh my God, that's exactly, or I've had snippets, or I feel this certain way, because this king in this life is going to relate, I think, mostly to this. Now, this king could be in feminine form, may not necessarily be in masculine form, but you will know by the feelings that are invoked in you when you go over this. So now what we're going to do is we're going to hit the tarot cards and try and catch up with this couple in this present time. So what I've done here is I've decided to split this whole scenario up into 2 parts. The first part is the past life story, and the second part, part 2, will be the actual tarot reading that will connect the past life to the present and bring all those energies together. So this is the end of part 1. If you want a continuation of this, go to part 2. And it will take me a bit of time here. I may not get it all done in one night. I know I'm going to upload this on Halloween, but I may not get the second part to it done in this same day, because there's a lot of work behind the scenes here. What do I want to say? I want to say feel free to comment and explain if this resonates or doesn't resonate. And if you have a story you'd like to share, feel free to share that as well. In the meantime, take care, have fun, and be kind. And part 2 is coming up real soon.